It's official. I just lost all.
OMG. Yeah, guys, I'm going to go ahead and read. Whew. So, guys, I had just posted the transcript of Donald Trump's interview with Time, and it is so fucking ridiculous. It's his first big boy interview, okay? And this was back on November 25th, but I want to read it. I've got to read it. It's so fucking ridiculous. It is a 59-minute read, and it's 12 minutes of fact checking. That's just how bad, it's just how bad this is, okay? So, I did the first TikTok, but I was like, I'm just going to read it out loud because this is going to be a hell of a lot easier. Okay. It says, President-elect Donald Trump's Time 2020 Person of the Year sat down for a wide-ranging interview at his Mar-a-Lago club in Palm Beach, Florida on November 25th. Over the course of the interview, Trump discussed his election victory, the economy, and the situations in Ukraine and the Middle East. He also spoke about his plans for a second term, including deporting millions of migrants, pardoning J6 defendants, as well as the future of the MAGA movement. Below is a transcript, lightly edited for clarity, of the interview, which was conducted by Time national political correspondent Eric Cortellessa, executive features editor Alex Altman, Washington bureau chief Massimo Calabrese, and editor-in-chief Sam Jacobs. Click here to read our fact check. Okay? Time. You've had an extraordinary year. You've lived it, and you know it. You cleared the field of the Republican campaign. You spent part of your campaign in the courtroom. You were almost shot to death on the trail. Your opponent dropped out, and then you won the swing states, which many people did not expect. What's the one thing we should know about your experience that we don't know? Trump. Well, I think we ran a flawless campaign. It was quite really something. I called it 72 Days of Fury. There were no days off. There were no timeouts. If you made a mistake, it would be magnified at levels that nobody's ever seen before. So you couldn't make a mistake. And it was just really I think we just ran really well. It was a drive to go through it. It started 72 days out. For some reason, it just seemed to be it. And I worked very hard. I've been given credit by actually the reporters that follow me because it was, it was just all the time, every day, and we said the right things. We said things that were on the minds of the country, and I think the Democrats didn't get it. They just keep going back to the same old nonsense. And it was nonsense, especially in where we are right now. And we hit something that was very special. We hit the nerve of the country. They don't want to see jails emptied into our country. They don't want to see people from mental institutions being dismissed from their institutions. This son of a bitch still believes asylum. He thinks asylum is like an institution. Thanks, guys, for joining. If you're just joining me today I'm just reading Time Person of the Year's absolute shifuckery. Thank you, Eartha, for the roast. Thank you, Nancy, for the lighting. I appreciate you. It's a long read, and I'd rather just read it for you because it's so fucking stellar. Whew. And if you miss it, I will upload this to my YouTube channel later. I just thought you'd like this. What is this, by the way? Who is this son of a bitch? That is 19 different shades less than his normal fucking orange. Is it not? Is it not? It's pretty. and he's like 40 pounds lighter, and he's sitting all... What is this? Who decided to change the copper to, I don't know, this very pale grayish? I can't even. Okay, back to the interview. Mr. President, what did the Democrats not get? You just said they didn't get it. What did you mean by that? I don't think they got the feel of the country. the country was angry because of immigration, because of the people. You know, millions and millions of people. I was saying it could be 21 million people. They were saying a much lesser number. But it wasn't a much lesser number. These are his fucking words. Y'all can follow along if you want. You can download the interview. I'm just going to read it because this is how I am picturing the person from Time. Just reading it, you know? He's just listening to he has to sit there and just ask the fucking questions. They were saying a much lesser number, but it wasn't a much lesser number. But even if it was irrelevant because they were allowing anybody to come into our country. They are right now. They open it up again. You see what's going on? They're coming. They're pouring up through Mexico and other places, and they aren't using common sense. I said we become the party of common sense. No one has said MAGA has been the party of fucking common sense. Literally no one has been like, oh, common sense? Oh, MAGA? No one. Thank you for the rose, Moon. I appreciate you. Common sense. I said we become the party of common sense. As an example, they really don't want to see men playing in women's sports. You can have and this one, and they don't want to see, and another example, urban boaters. They want to see people come in. Everyone's okay with it, and I certainly am. I want to have a lot of people coming because we're going to bring back a lot of jobs. We're bringing back record number of jobs, and we'll do it through good taxing policy and, some basic business intelligence. But we're going to bring back record jobs. Record companies are coming into our country, and they're not going to be able to steal our companies anymore. And I talked about that. But I deferred perhaps from you people. I thought the economy was a big factor, especially the real economy, which is the economy going out and buying groceries or buying a car or buying a house, which was, between interest and between cost. An example of the cost of the house is a big chunk of the cost of the house is just the approval process and regulations. This is how this man is saying this interview. It's Halo, how are you, ID? How are you guys doing? Yeah, we're just going to read the person. He's the absolute pinnacle of amazingness. He says, okay, I want to come back to immigration in a little bit, but let's start on what's happening right now. You were elected on a promise to change Washington. By all accounts, the fight over has already begun. One of your nominees was effectively blocked by the Senate. There are other senators who have expressed doubts on some of your other nominees. What are you going to do if the Senate continues to balk your choices for these cabinet positions? Well, I don't think they will. And he wasn't blocked. I had the votes if I needed them, but I had to work very hard. And there were numerous hard no's, all of whom agreed with me to do it. So you decided to give up on Gates? No, I didn't give up on him. I talked to him. I said, man, I don't think this is worth the fight. He was there. I was convinced 5 people that there were hard no's, but we want to speak to the president, and the beauty is that we won by so much. The mandate was massive. It wasn't. Somebody had 129 years in terms of the overall mandate. That's a lot of years, but people respected that. An example, many places were thinking they could go down and they could riot and make trouble, protest on election night. You know what happened? The numbers started coming in. Everyone just left. They left. You see signs of it. Washington, D.C., where people gathered. You mean because Elon said, I got the numbers? You know what I mean? Hello, sisters. I called it 4 hours. Just go home. We got this. It was called way too quickly. Did I hear you say that you met in person with Gates and the 5 hard-no senators? No, not with the senators there. No, I called the senators, and my relationship with the Senate is very good. Many of them I've endorsed. Many of them I got elected, and if I did get involved in those races, those senators would have lost. We wouldn't have the majority. Mr. President, will you use the recess appointments to fill vacancies if you can't get them through? I really don't care how they get approved, as long as they get them approved. So you might do it? It's up to the Senate, but I think I have a very good relationship with Senator Thune and all the others, all of them. I think almost everybody, many of them, I was very instrumental in getting, if not this season, last season, and the season before that, I would say more than half. Will you commit to honoring the Senate's authority to reject or confirm your nominees? Well, sure, I want them to do that. I don't think there are too many. I don't think that they look, everybody has, that's why they have menus in restaurants. You have different choices. Some people love certain candidates. I'll tell you, I put some of that thought a little bit more controversial, and they turned out necessarily be the ones that were so controversial. Okay, one of them who was controversial, who I just asked you a quick question about, is RFK Jr., who is a noted vaccine skeptic. If he moves to end childhood vaccination programs, would you sign off on that? Oh, we're going to have a big discussion. The autism rate is at a level that nobody ever believed possible. If you look at things that are happening, there's something causing it. Oh, please tell us, Wizard of Waverly Place. Do you think it's linked to vaccines? No, I'm going to listen to Bobby. Who I've really get along with really great and have a lot of respect for, having to do with food, having to do with vaccinations. He doesn't disagree with all vaccinations. He disagrees with some. But we'll have it. We're going to do what's good for the country. So that could include getting rid of some vaccinations. It could if I think it's dangerous, if I think they're not beneficial. But I don't think there's going to be very controversial in the end. Do you agree with him about the connection between vaccines and autism? I want to see the numbers. It's going to be about the numbers. I will be able to do, I think you're going to feel very good about it in the end. We're going to be able to do very serious testing and we'll see the numbers. A lot of people think a lot of different things. At the end of the studies that we're doing, we're going all out. We're going to know what's good and what's not good. We will know for sure and what's good and what's not good. Oh my God, he has the IQ of a fucking shoe sole. Mr. President, some foreign officials have expressed concern about sharing intelligence with Tulsi Gabbard, given her position in support of Russia and Syria. With her confirmation, be worth the price of some of our allies not sharing intelligence with us. I'm surprised to hear that, because I think she's like a really great American. Hey, look, they said if I was friendly with Russia until they saw the tapes, and then they said, he's not actually. He's the one that ended the Russian pipeline, Nord Stream 2. He was the one who put the sanctions on Russia, and I get along with Russia. I get along with a lot of people that would think I wouldn't get along with, but we get our way because of this country. I'm not for other countries. By the way, do you want hors d'oeuvres or anything? So when he gets asked hard questions, he's like, are you hungry? Would you like to eat? Thanks, guys. If you're just joining, I'm just reading Time Person's interview of the year because it's fucking Shakespearean. That's why. They're like, no, that's generous. Thank you. You sure? He says in the interview. By the way, do you want hors d'oeuvres or anything? No, that's generous. Thank you. You sure? Yes, but thank you. If you learn that foreign officials are withholding... So this motherfucker was offering hors d'oeuvres to hard questions like 5 fucking minutes in. He was like, I'm not having it. If you learn that foreign officials are withholding intelligence because she is head of your intelligence, would that change your calculus? I don't know. I'm surprised to hear it. I think I heard the first time the other day. I mean, I think she's a great American. I think she's a person with tremendous common sense. I've watched her for years. She has nothing to do with Russia. Bing! Red flag. The other, a mini Russia scam. This is another mini Russia scam. I think probably if that's what's happening. No, I don't see it. Certainly if something can be shown to me. Yeah, because he deals in hard-ass facts, right? During the campaign, you disavowed Project 2025. But so far, at least 5 people you've appointed to top positions in your cabinet have ties to it. Doesn't that undermine what you told Americans on the campaign trail? No, look, I don't disagree with everything in Project 2025, but I disagree with some things. I specifically didn't want to read it because you can't fucking read. I specifically didn't want to read it because it wasn't under my auspices, and I wanted to be able to say that, the only way I can say I have nothing to do with it is if I don't read it. Yeah, that's the only way. I can't read it. I don't want to read it. Nope, not gonna. Nope, if I don't see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil, right, Donnie? I don't want to. I didn't read it. I've read enough about it. They have some things that are very conservative and very good. They have other things that I don't like. I won't go into individual items, but I have nothing to do with Project 2025. Now, if we had a few people that were involved, they had hundreds of them. This is a big document from what I understand. More than 800 pages. Oh, that's a lot of pages. That's a lot of pages. I thought it was inappropriate they came out with it just before the election, to be honest with you. It's been here for 40 years. It just keeps, there's like the 8th revision. They're like, the interviewer, really? Yeah, I would let them know. Yeah, I didn't think it was appropriate because it's not me. Why would they do that? They complicated my election by doing it because people tried to tie me to it, and I didn't agree with everything in there, and some things I vehemently disagreed with, and I thought it was inappropriate they would come out with a document like this prior to my election. Sir, did you express those frustrations with them? Oh, I did. It wasn't a frustration. It was a fact. Totally inappropriate. They came up with 800-page document, and the enemy, which is, the other party, is allowed to go through it and pick out 2 items, 12 items, 800. No, I thought it was an open. I thought it was foolish of them for doing it. I understand, sir. These people that would like to see me win, and yet they came out with this document, and they had some pretty ridiculous things in there. They also had some very good things in there. I thought you didn't read it. I understand, sir. Let me shift topic to a topic that I know you care quite a bit about, immigration. You recently said on Truth Social that you plan to use the military to deport migrants. It's a Posse Comitatus Act prohibits the use of military for domestic law enforcement. What will you do if the military does not or refuses to carry out your orders? Well, it doesn't. It doesn't stop the military if it's an invasion of our country. And I consider it an invasion of our country. We have criminals coming into our country that we've never seen before. We've had people coming in at levels and at record numbers we've never seen before. And I only do what the law allows, but I will go up to the maximum level of what the law allows. And I think in many cases, the sheriffs and the law enforcement is going to need help. Doesn't mean are. We also get National Guard. We'll get National Guard, and we'll go as far as I'm allowed to go according to the laws of our country. If you can't negotiate agreements with receiving governments and none of them seem receptive, will you, out of necessity, have to hold these detained migrants in camps? I'll get them into every country. And we won't do business with those countries. So you won't need to build more detention facilities, sir? No, because, look, we have many to do it anyway, okay? Because look, they brought in millions of people. Many of those people have been, taken out of jails and prisons. You look at prison populations, that's what's happening all over the world, except here. No, I can't conceive of why they would allow known criminals from jails that have tremendous records. Look, if you look at the 13,000 plus 13,099, which was issued by Border Patrol, they said these people were murderers and they allowed them into our country. Why would somebody do that? And that's why Democrats lost, because of many things like that. That's a bad one, by the way. A bad one, but there are many things like that. So you're saying there won't be more camps to hold detained migrants. Well, there might be, whatever it takes to get them out. I don't care, whatever it takes to get them out. Again, I'll do it with absolutely the confines of the law, but if it needs new camps, but I hope we won't get to need too many, because I want to get them out. I don't want them sitting in camp for 20 years. I want them out, and the countries have to take them back, and if they don't take them back, we won't do business with those countries, and we will tariff those countries very substantial. It's not how tariffs work. And we'll tariff those countries substantially. When they send products in, we'll have substantial tariffs. It's going to make it very hard for them to do business. Question. He thinks that if he doesn't detain... I can't wait to read the fact check. It's going to be off the fucking chain, right? You get that, right? A question on the minds of a lot of Americans. Will you restore your policy of separating families? I don't think so. I won't have to, because first of all, it was my policy. It was Obama's policy. I didn't build jail cells for children. He did. If you look at the 2024, I don't want to litigate the past. I'm asking just if you will do this. Well, you said your policy. This was a policy of the country. I don't believe we'll have to, because we'll send the whole family back to the country. Deport them together? I would much rather deport them together, yes, than separate. By the way, when you talk about separation, we have 325,000 children here during Democrats, and this was done by Democrats, who right now are slaves, sex slaves, or dead, and they were allowed. So, I mean, they are here, and then I will be doing what we're trying to find, and they're going to get back to their parents. Many of the people who voted for you, as you mentioned moments ago, cited high prices, particularly food and groceries. If you deport millions of migrant agricultural workers, won't the price of food rise sharply? No, because we're going to let people in, but we have to do it legally. We don't want people coming from jails. We don't want the jails of Venezuela and other countries, not just South American countries. We don't want jails to be opened into our country. We're not accepting their prisoners. We're not accepting their murderers. We're not accepting their people from mental institutions. We're not doing it. Your transition co-chair, Howard Lutnick, said your appointees would be vetted for loyalty. Are you going to ask your appointees to take a loyalty pledge? If they don't follow your orders, will you fire them? I don't think I'll have to. I think I'll know. I mean, look at all you can do and feel comfortable with people. There's always disloyal people, and every president's had them. I've had them, and every president has to have them. But no, I think I will be able to, for the most part, determine who's loyal. I want them to be loyal as to the policy, as to the country. It's got to be loyal. If they don't follow your orders, you'll fire them. If I think it's appropriate, I'd fire them. Does that go for civil servants as well, Mr. President, who work in the executive branch but aren't appointees? Well, it depends. We have some interesting things happening in rules and regulations, but we're going to see. But sure, if I'm allowed to do that, I would do that. Even if they're not following policies, absolutely. You've put Elon Musk in charge of Doge, giving him the power to, along with Vivek Ramaswamy, yes, absolutely. But Musk specifically giving him the power to oversee the agencies that regulate his companies. Isn't that a conflict of interest? I don't think so. Look, we have a country that is bloated with rules, regulations, and with, frankly, people that are unnecessary to do. We are going to need a lot of people in a lot of other jobs. We're going to get people into the private sector jobs where they can do better and be more productive. We're going to see what happens. We're having some interesting months coming up in the beginning. We're going to see what happens. But this country is bloated. I think everybody agrees that there's waste in the federal government. Waste, fraud, and abuse. But Elon Musk is talking about cuts that would directly affect NASA, which would then directly affect SpaceX, his company. Isn't that textbook definition of conflict of interest? I think Elon puts the country long before his company. I mean, he's in a lot of companies, but he really is, and I've seen it. He considers this to be the most important project, and he wanted to do it. And I think he's one of the very few people that would have credibility to do it. But he puts the country before. I've seen it before he puts his company. How much was he drinking? Well, ultimately, Congress controls spending. Would you veto a budget or appropriation that does not comply with the Musk-Ramaswamy Commission of Doge? I might. There are many things you can do without Congress. When it comes to cutting, harder to get, but to cut, you can do a lot of things without Congress. What do you plan to do? I mean, I'll give you an example. We want to move schools back to the states. We want to, we're at the bottom of every list in terms of education. We're at the top of every list in terms of cost per pupil. And we want to move them back to the states. And we'll spend half the money on a much better product. We'll get, I believe we can compete with Norway and Denmark and Finland and other countries. And I will tell you, China is right at the top of that list too. Most lists. What does moving it back to the states mean? Does that mean you're closing the Department of Education? A virtual closure of the Department of Education in Washington. A virtual closer? Well, you're going to need some people just to make sure they're teaching English in the schools, English, mathematics, let's say. But we want to move education back to the states. If you look at the states, if you look at some of the individual countries, Norway is a very strong educational country. But many, I think Iowa and I think Indiana and a lot of these states are well-run states. We have a lot of them that are very well-run. When they run their own educational program, I think it's going to be like to be able to compete with anybody. They're going to have badly run states, like guys like Gavin Newsom in California, where he does a poor job. But in California, you'll give it to Riverside. You'll give it, you'll give the areas of California where I think you'll run a great school program. This is so fucking unhinged. It's so. This is gonna be who's the leader. This is who this is. We're talking about this person of the year saying this stupid shit. Last question on your transition. Why have you declined to sign an ethics agreement as part of? I don't know anything about it. The ethics document? I don't know. I would sign an ethics document. Mind you guys, this is before Thanksgiving. Will you disclose who the donors were to your transition? To my campaign? No. To paying for the transition. Taylor Butterwich. There will be an announcement on this week. I have no problem disclosing anything. I have no problem disclosing anything. That's great, Mr. President. Just so you know, I have heard of this a couple days ago. I have no problem. I'd rather disclose it right up front. I have no problem with it. Because he's funding his own transition. Because then he doesn't. Oh, okay. I've got questions about the campaign. Was there a moment when you thought you might lose? I like to not think of that. The power of positive thinking, right? But there were some moments when, there was some bad things done in the campaign. A lot of fake polls. They were absolutely fake. Look, an example at a very good pollster was in Iowa. I thought I was winning at the end, but it wasn't like she was she was a great. For years, she was the best. But she was the gold standard in Iowa. And a couple weeks before the election, she had me up 4 and brought it down all the way to 18 or 19 that then thought they were. And they were up by 18 or 19 points, which is, where I get the farmers like me. But she did in gradual steps. She did it up to 4. There's a big story. I was only up by 4. And then she decided that I was down 3 and became headlines of the place just before the election. When you saw that, did you think you were going to lose? I thought it was a wrong poll because we had an Emerson poll that had us up by 18, What was the darkest moment for you in the campaign? By the way, I'm using that example. I didn't think I was going to lose. I thought it was a dishonest poll. We're going to probably prove that because, we're talking to people in the court because I think we have an obligation to. Like 60 Minutes review, my opponent in the news program, that's the most important news program, and she gave a horrible answer. It was a bad answer, and they took that answer and replaced it. And then this is her speaking, and they replaced it with another answer from a half an hour later in the interview, and she had nothing to do with it, but it was a much better answer. That's really dishonest. Speaking of Kamala Harris, what do you think were her worst mistakes in her campaign? Taking the assignment, number 1, because you have to know what you're good at. Did she make any tactical mistakes do you think cost her? I think that when she would talk to anybody, it shone a light on her. In other words, if you would have gone out and just did interviews where they were comparable to Steve, if anybody out there's comparable, would you say, could you do an interview here, an interview there? She didn't do anything. And people said, is there something wrong with her? Why would they? I mean, I'm doing this interview with you. I did interviews with, if I had the time, anybody that would ask, I'd do interviews. I think Joe Rogan interview, that lasted for almost 3.5 hours. I watched the whole thing, sir. Yes. Oh, good. I hope you liked it. But I found it to be a pleasure to do it. He was an interesting guy. I wish I could have gone and done even longer. I had a rally. It was 2.5 hours late for in Michigan. It was very cold. And, we didn't lose to anybody. But I explained to him, listen, I just did an interview. We've got to win this thing. And it was 2.5 hours late. And I didn't know if it was going to be there. I thought something was going to be an hour or something. You had to wrap it up at the end. Yeah, I had to. I had to say, listen, we have a rally where you have thousands of people that are standing. I think and one of the big advantages is that as I had as the rallies, I think, nobody else gets the people like we had. We had the biggest rallies. Nobody's ever seen rallies like that. And they were enthusiastic rallies. And when you see that and then somebody comes up the following day and have a few hundred people, you would say, you have a big advantage. But it's an interesting question when you ask about it. I think they made a big tactical mistake by literally not talking to the press, even if a friendly, and I mean, they had almost friendly. Somebody would come up with a really friendly, like you guys maybe, but a friendly interview, and they turned everybody down. They wouldn't do the basic, and people, including me, would start to say, is there something wrong with her? What's wrong? Why wouldn't you do some basic interviews? And she had some pretty failed interviews, and maybe it was highlighted more than it would. In other words, if she did say in those same interviews, but in another 15 interviews, she wouldn't have really noticed that much. The bad ones would have drained out. She put so much emphasis on interviews, somebody thought there was something wrong. I don't think she's ever recovered from that. I'm going to shift to foreign policy here. Have you spoken with Vladimir Putin since your election? I can't tell you. It's just inappropriate. No, it's not. If Ukraine doesn't agree to a peace deal that you have said, will you broker, will you cut the military, humanitarian, and intelligence assistance to them? Look, the reason I don't like to tell you this as a negotiator, when I sit down and talk to some very brilliant young people, young. Compared to me, they're very young. But when I talk to people, when I start to think about a very good plan, but when I start exposing that plan, it becomes almost a worthless plan. Will you commit to protecting Ukrainian sovereignty, though, from Russia? I would like to see Ukraine. Okay, ready? You have to give back a little bit further. It would never have happened if I were president. Would never have happened. Okay, but it has happened. So the question people want to know is, would you abandon Ukraine? It makes it so bad. I had a meeting recently with a group of people from the government where they came in and briefed me, and I'm not speaking out of turn. The numbers of dead soldiers that have been killed in the last months, a number are staggering, both Ukrainians and Russians, and the amounts are fairly equal. I'd like to say that they're fairly equal, but the numbers of dead young soldiers lying over the fields in the place are staggering. It's crazy what's taking place. It's crazy. I disagree vehemently with sending missiles hundreds of miles into Russia. Why are they doing that? We're just escalating this war and making it worse. This should not be allowed. It should not have been done. Now we're doing it not only missiles, but they're doing other types of weapons. And I think it's a very big mistake. Very big mistake. But the number of people dying is number one, not sustainable. And I'm talking both sides. It's really an advantage to both sides to get this thing done. The question that many Americans and many people around the world have is, will you abandon Ukraine? I want to reach an agreement, and the only way you're going to reach an agreement is not to abandon. You understand what that means, right? Right. Well, no, tell me. Well, I just said it. You can't reach an agreement if you abandon, in my opinion. And I disagree with the whole thing, because if it should never have happened. Putin would never have invaded Ukraine if I were president for numerous reasons. Number one, they drove up the price of oil. They drove up the price of oil made profit-making situation for him. The oil prices shouldn't have been driven down. If it was driven down, we wouldn't have just started for pure economic reasons. But when it hits $80, $85, $90 a barrel, I mean, he made a lot of money. I'm not saying it's a good thing, because he also suffered, but they are moving forward. This is just a war thing. It's been a tragedy. There's deaths far greater than anyone knows. When the real numbers come out, you're going to see numbers that you're not going to believe. Well, another war with a high death toll is happening in the Middle East. You reportedly told Prime Minister Netanyahu you wanted him to end the war in Gaza before he took office. What did he say? I think that, before I talk about that, I think the Middle East is easier problem to handle than what's happening in Russia and Ukraine, okay? I just want to say that up front. The Middle East is going to be solved. The Middle East it's a horrible thing. October 7th was a horrible thing. Everybody's forgetting conveniently about October 7th. That was a horrible day for the world. Not for Israel, for the world. I think the Middle East is going to get, as we speak, things are happening very productively in the Middle East. I think the Middle East is going to get solved. I think it's more complicated than the Russia-Ukraine, but it's easier to solve. Did Netanyahu give you assurances about when he would end the war? I don't want to say that, but I think he feels confident. I think he feels very confident in me, and I think he knows I want it to end, and I want everything to end, and I don't want people killed. I don't want people from either side killed. That includes Russia, Ukraine, or the Palestinians, or the Israelis, or the Palestinians, the different entities that we have in the Middle East. There's so many different entities, but I don't want people killed. When you say productive things are happening, can you be more specific? No, I can't. I'd love to. I would so love to be, but I can't. I will be. We're going to sit down in a period of time, hopefully soon, and I'll tell you all the things that are happening. But because there's some very productive things happening, I do think, okay, because I'm looking into two primary fronts, right? You have Russia, Ukraine, you have to get this, and then the other problem also. But you look when North Korea gets involved in another element that's very complicating factor. And I know Kim Jong-un, I get along very well with Kim Jong-un. I'm probably the only one who he ever really dealt with. When I like to think about it, I'm the only one he's ever dealt with. But you have a lot of very bad complicating factors out there. But we'll sit down at the end of each of these, or both, or maybe simultaneously. We'll sit down and I'll show you what a good job I did. You mentioned the Palestinian people in your first term. your administration put forward the most comprehensive plan for a two-state solution in a long time. Do you still support that plan? I support a plan of peace, and I can make it take different forms. And when the Abraham Accords, that should have been loaded up with the people, I made a statement, but I don't think I didn't add one country. Think of it. Think I add one country to the Abraham Accords. We had 4 countries, very important countries, but that should have been loaded up with the Middle Eastern countries. Do you still support a two-state solution? I support whatever solution we can get to peace. There are other ideas other than a two-state, but I support whatever is necessary not just to get peace, a lasting peace. I can't go on where every 5 years you end up in tragedy. There are other alternatives. Your incoming ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, supports the settlement movement in Israel annexing the West Bank. The real question is at the heart of this, sir, do you want to go to a two-state deal done, outlined in your peace to prosperity deal that you put forward, or are you willing to let Israel annex the West Bank? So where there's going to be a peace is where the killing stops. Would you tell Israel, Bibi tried last time and you stopped him? Would you do it again this time? We'll see what happens. Yeah, I did. I stopped him, but we'll see what happens. October 7th was a very terrible day. October 7th, people are forgetting about it. They don't even mention it. It was a tragic day. There's another thing that's happening are the hostages. Where are the hostages? Why aren't they back? Well, they could be gone. I think Hamas is probably saying, wow, the hostages are gone. That's what they want. So there's a scenario where you would allow Israel to annex the West Bank? I will. What I'm saying is, I'll say it again. I'm saying it again. I want a long-lasting peace. I'm not saying it's a very likely scenario, but I want long-lasting peace, a peace where we don't have to have an October 7th in another 3 years. There are numerous ways you can do it. You can do it two-state. You could do it numerous ways. It could be done. I like to see, but who could be happy? But I like to see everybody happy. Everybody going about their lives and people stopping from dying. That includes many different fronts. I mean, we have some tremendous world problems that we didn't have when I was president. When I left, we had an Iran that was not threatening. They had no money. They weren't giving money to Hamas. They weren't giving money to Hezbollah. Iran plotted to have you assassinated. What are the chances of going to war with Iran during your next term? Anything can happen. Anything can happen. It's very volatile situation. I think most dangerous right now is what's happening where Zelensky has decided with the approval of, I assume, the president to start shooting missiles at Russia. I think the major escalation, I think it's foolish. It's a foolish decision, but I would imagine people are waiting until I get in before anything like that happens. I mean, I think it would be very smart to do. Do you trust Netanyahu? I don't trust anybody. Can I ask, did Elon Musk meet with the Iranians at your behest? I don't know that he met with them. Reportedly, he met with Iranians. I don't know. He didn't tell me that. Let's shift back to some domestic issues. Will you vow that the FDA will not do anything to limit access to medication, abortion, or abortion pills? Well, we're going to take a look at that. That's why I'm here. We're going to take a look at that. So it's possible they may. You're talking about the abortion pill? I'm talking about abortion pill, FDA approvals. It's very unlikely. Very unlikely. But possible. If they tried, would you stop them? My stance from a long campaign, a long, hard campaign, I was against that. Strongly against that. Can you be specific? Strongly against? Strongly against. You're talking about the abortion pill. You're against the abortion pill. No, I was against stopping it. Right. Okay, just to clarify. So I don't see any reason why it changed, but somebody could come up with something that, that's a horrible thing. You won't rule it out, though? Look, I stated very clearly that I just started again, and very clearly, I think it would be highly unlikely. I can't imagine, but with, we're looking at everything, but it's highly unlikely. I mean, I guess I could probably close to ruling it out, but I don't want to. I don't want to do anything now. I'm going to do it at some point. There's a time in the future where people are going to be knowing everything about the subjects like that, which are very complex subjects for people, because you have other people, that feel strongly both ways, really strongly both ways, and those are things that are dividing up the country. But, my stand for a very long time, hard thinking, I think it's very unlikely that I ever change it. It is 100% unlikely that I change it, or that I state, I think what women of America want to know, are you committed to making sure that the FDA does not strip their ability to access abortion pills? That will be my commitment. Yeah, it's always been my commitment. Can I shift to transgender issues? Sort of a major issue during the 2016 campaign. You said transgender people could use whatever bathroom they choose. Do you still feel that way? When was that? 2016. I don't want to get into the bathroom issue because it's a very small number of people we're talking about, and it's ripped apart our country. So we'll have to settle for whatever law finally agrees. I'm a big believer in the Supreme Court, and I'm going to go by their rulings. And so far, I think their rulings have been rulings that the people are going along with. But we're talking about a very small number of people. We're talking about it, and it gets massive coverage, and it's not a lot of people. But on that note, there's a big fight in Congress now. There's an incoming trans member from Delaware, Sarah McBride, says we should all be focused on more important issues. Do you agree? I do agree with that. On that, absolutely. As I was saying, it's a small number of people. It was a big issue, though, on the campaign. I mean, one of the ads your campaign ran and put the most money behind was Trump is for us and Harris is for they/them. Well, it's true. Trump is for us. Right. It's obviously struck a chord. I mean, Trump definitely is for us, okay? And the vast majority of the people in this country. And I also want people to know that people should be treated fairly. You know, forget the majority or not majority. I want people to be treated well and fairly. Last questions on the trans issue. Will you reverse Biden's protections for trans kids under Title IX? I'm going to look at it very closely. We're looking at it right now. We're going to look at it. Gonna look at it. I lost my place. Hang on one second, guys. I'm so sorry. Doop, doop, doop. I accidentally hit back. No. Okay, this was the interview that was back like right around Thanksgiving time. So, True, Trump for us. I'm going to look at it very closely. We're looking at it right now. We're going to look at it. We're looking at everything. Look at the country is torn apart. We're going to look at everything. Do you plan to fire your hand-picked FBI director, Christopher Wray? I'll be announcing something in the future. I'm looking at people and we're making a decision in the not-too-distant future. Are you considering Kash Patel as a replacement? Yes, I am. One of the people, yeah. Editor's note. On November 30th, Trump announced he intends to nominate Patel for FBI director. Have you decided yet whether you're going to pardon all January 6th defendants? Yes. You're going to do it to all of them? I'm going to do case by case, and if they were nonviolent, and I think they've been greatly punished. And the thing is, I will be doing that. Yeah, I'm going to look if there's something that were really out of control. So you will not include those who committed violent acts? Well, we're going to look at each individual case, and we're going to do it very quickly. And it's going to start in the first hour I get into office. And a vast majority of them should not be in jail. A vast majority should not be in jail, and they've suffered gravely. And when I say, why is it that in Portland and many other places, Minneapolis, why is it nothing happened with them? And they actually caused death and destructions at levels not seen before. So, you know, if you take a look at what happened in Seattle, people had to die. You had a lot of death. Nothing happened. These people have been treated really, really badly. Yeah, it's an important issue for me. They've suffered greatly, and in many cases, they should have not suffered. We're sitting here moments after Jack Smith dropped off the case against you. Over the course of the campaign, you vowed or suggested prosecuting a long list of political rivals, whether it's Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, Jack Smith, Alvin Bragg, Adam Schiff, Mark Milley. Did you raise these prosecutions of the people with Pam Bondi? No. You haven't spoken to her about it? No. How do you expect her to proceed? I think she's going to be fair to everybody. She's very respected. She's very smart, even brilliant person. She was successful at the highest level of Attorney General. Are there going to be investigations of these subjects, of these people? That's up to her. That'll be up to her. Steve Chung, we're coming on about 45 minutes, sir. Is there anything positive we can talk about? Actually, we do, but it's a complicated world. Let's do some rapid fire questions, shall we? I did win the greatest election that a lot of people say we had hundreds of years. Well, here's something we can talk about. The GOP will have full control of Congress. You're going to have a governing trifecta after you won. What are your first priorities in Congress? Well, my first priorities are I don't really need Congress for it, frankly, securing the border and for drilling oil. Are you going to push for any major legislation in your first year in office? Yeah, sure. What will that be? Well, we have to extend the tax cuts, very importantly. I think it's a very important thing, but our Secretary of Treasury has been really well received, as you can see by the stock market, etc. But very important, we've extended tax cuts. But we have a lot of things when Democrats were saying, they need Congress to secure the border. They don't need Congress. All you have to do is say, I want the border secured. I had the most secure border we ever had, and I never had to go to Congress for it. Do you think Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito should resign in the next 2 years so you can appoint younger successors? I think they're incredible, actually. So that's up to them. But I think they're incredible, and I think they've been great justices. Everyone across the political spectrum recognizes the nature of your comeback, the historical nature of comeback, your resilience. What do you understand about the American psyche that your opponents do not? See, I don't view it as a comeback, and people have said it's the greatest comeback in political history, and beyond even political history plus. Beyond even in political history plus. They said add sports and add everything else, but I don't think of it that way. I ran a great campaign. I think it was popular. I think it did a very good job the first term. We got hit by COVID at the end, but even with COVID, we did very, very good job that people are starting to recognize. But you take a look at those first few years, we never had an economy even close to that. So I don't view it as a comeback. I know it's considered that, but I should allow it to be that. And it should be allowed to be that. But, come back from what? I've always been here, He's never left. I think more to the point of the sort of question was driving it is, you've won. You've won twice now. Right. You've realigned both political parties. You've changed America. There's got to be something that you understand about winning votes for the American people that your opponents maybe don't give you credit for. And I'm curious as to what that is. It's, I think people want to lead a good life. I think they want to be able to buy groceries at a reasonable price and not have to turn off their heat in order to buy 2 apples. I think that people want security. I think people want to have their borders rushed by, and it's really an invasion of our country by foreign countries, and it's not just South America. I mean, these countries are all over. I think our people have common sense applied in their life, and they don't want to see a girl being beat up in a boxing ring by a man as it happens. They don't want to see somebody in a weightlifting contest as a woman against a man. It makes no sense. They don't want to see, men playing in sports. They don't. They don't want to see all this transgender, which is, it's just taken over. When you look at very many years of the person who went through this process is saying, who did this to me? And it's a very high percentage. I really think that people in this country have tremendous hearts. I think they understand that they want common sense applied to their lives. Most of the things I talk about are common sense. They don't want to see their food prices going up by 57% in a short period of time. It's a very specific number. And I think that's why I won. I think it's why I won. The Republican Party has become the party of common sense. It's so many other things I mentioned too. They don't want to have all electric cars. They might want an electric car. Electric cars are great, but they're not for everybody. They also want gas-powered cars or hybrids or anything else that comes out. They don't want to have a mandate on cars where they're forced to buy a car they don't want. There's so many things. I mean, there's too innumerable. There's too many to mention. I could go on all day giving you guys crazy, crazy stats. But your appeal pre-exists a lot of this. Stuff. Yeah, Eric, but in the end, you want to see the country run with common sense. They don't want to be invaded by 100 and 182 at this moment. We've had during the course of the last 3 years, 182 people don't realize how many countries there are. There are a lot of countries. 182 is even close to the number, okay? We've had 182 countries where people have invaded our country, essentially invaded our country. We don't know who they are. We don't know where they are. We don't know anything about them. We just walk into their country. They just take over. You see what's happening in Venezuela, right? And the gangs, they're all in many different states. There's like 12 states at this moment. They're causing tremendous havoc and violence. People don't want that. I know that obviously you're going to go on and enter office, but I'm sort of curious about the legacy component. Lindsey Graham says policies don't work without Trump. You said you believe in some ways that's true. If that's the case, how does MAGA endure as a political movement after you leave the office in 4 years? Well, my policies, I've heard that statement. I thought it was actually a very interesting statement. We can use the same words and maybe look at look in your eye how that works. For like countries like for Mexico, we're not going to allow Mexico to continue to invade our country by allowing people to be dropped off in Mexico and come to the United States. We're not going to allow that to happen. And I will say it to Mexico. My apologies. I will say to Mexico in another way, and maybe a way that accepted that somebody else in other the same words, it's not accepted. So I sort of agree with him, but there are many others that maybe can do it, and maybe they can do it as well. But my policies work. My policies work. We have to be. What's happening with people is coming through Mexico and Canada also. You can't forget about Canada. We have tremendous illegal immigration coming through Canada. Drugs are coming in through Canada in large numbers. We're not going to allow that to happen. I'll take action against Canada and Mexico. We're not going to allow it to happen. You've galvanized a social and political movement that has transformed the country. What do you think will happen to MAGA movement when you leave office or when you're no longer on the scene? Well, I hope when I leave office, I'll be able to leave people that are extremely competent, and I get it, and then who get it. And those people we have far more than you think. We have some great warriors. We have great people that want to see this country taken care of. Do those people include members of your family? Say it. Or I think it means like, say it. Do those people include members of your family? I think some competent members of my family. My kids are very competent. I don't think that they're going to choose family. I don't think they're going to choose to go through this. They've been treated very badly. My son Don has spent hours in front of essentially grand juries and Congress over something he never had anything to do with. Russia. He'd come back and say, Dad, I have nothing to do with Russia. He didn't know anything about Russia, and it would turn out to be a hoax. He's very politically active. He is. Do you think he has a future in politics? I think he'd do well, especially in certain areas. I think he'd do very well. I think he's very capable. Eric is very capable and a very different type. Laura, some of those people, Ivanka would be, sure, if she wanted to be, would be a superstar in politics. I think she's a great person, and she's so family-oriented, Ivanka, and I understand that also makes it more difficult. It makes it more difficult, definitely. But there's very capable people when they have a name which seems to be a very good name. Do you think there will be a Trump dynasty? There could be. Yeah, I see people who we're talking about. Laura has been amazing. Look, she was the head of the Republican Party. She's a young woman, and she was the head of the Republican Party, and we did a great job. The cheating would have been breathtaking, and we got it down to a minimum. And they cheat, and we got it down to a minimum. They were effective. The RNC was very, very effective. What would your father think of your political comeback? I think he would not call it a comeback. I think he would just say it was Donald. But what would he think of your political career? Oh, he would have been amazed. Yeah, my father would have been amazed because my father didn't make speeches. He didn't make, it wasn't, he probably could have done it well, but it wasn't his thing. I don't think he would have been doing this thing. It's sort of a combination, both like my mother and father. You need a lot of energy to do that. I did a lot of rallies. We did like 12 rallies in 3 days. There were these full rallies because, when people are waiting for 2 days or 3 days to get in, you can't, people say, well, maybe you keep it down to 25 minutes or 15 minutes. If I ever went up for 15 minutes, they're waiting for days, we have tents. Many people follow the rallies. They followed it, and it'll never happen again. It's a sad way. It'll never happen again. You get some things from your father. What do you get from your mother? So my mother was a woman. She was born in Scotland. She had great respect for the Queen Elizabeth. It was a long time. She was there for 75 years, and she liked pomp and ceremony. She thought it was a good thing, not a bad thing, but she was glamorous. My father was hard-nosed. I'm sort of an interesting combination. Maybe there's a combination. Here we sit at Mar-a-Lago. Maybe there's a combination of that. Will the First Lady be joining you at the White House for this term? Huh. Oh, yes. She was very, very, she actually became very active toward the end, as you saw with interviews. And she does them well. People really watch. She's very beloved by the people, Melania. And then the fact that she's not up there in your face all the time, for many reasons. Many political people have said that, because she's really like her. They really love her. Actually, in many ways, when I make speeches, we love our First Lady. They have signs. We love our First Lady. No, she'll be active where she needs to be and when she needs to be. I've been keeping a list, Mr. President, of things you mentioned that you intend to do earlier in administration. It sounds like a reasonable number of things. Turning the Department of Education virtual. Well, virtual turning it virtual, turning it back to the States. J6 pardons. Do you have in mind what the first 24 to 48 hours look like? I'll be looking at J6 early on, maybe the first 9 minutes. The first 9 minutes? What the fuck is he talking about? First 9 minutes. I'll be looking at oil prices bringing down, coming to very substantially, meaning energy costs coming down. And with energy comes everything else. See, it really hurt them. They really hurt themselves. It went from my energy policies totally. It was going to crash. The numbers were through the roof. And then it went back to them. And they said, okay, just let it be. And there was a difference between the energy and what they did on energy and what they did at the border. And the border, they just opened it up to the world. They didn't stop. We had Remain in Mexico. We had the border that was in great shape. Not easy to do. But on that one, they just said, open it up. And they didn't change. They just changed that. With energy, they opened up. You saw what was going on. The energy was going through the roof. And then they just said, just go back to Trump's policies. And they went back. And now the difference is they would have 3 times as much now. They have essentially sort of, if they try to get equal, but they didn't do that. They would have energy. You'd have inflation that would have been much worse than it is. And it's already probably the worst the country's ever had. And we had inflation. They lost on inflation. They lost on immigration. They lost on, as a part of immigration, I have been a very part of the big border. The border itself. You can subvert the word immigration. They lost on economy, but it's a different kind of thing. The economy as it pertains to groceries and small things are actually big things for a family. If the price of groceries doesn't come down, will your presidency be a failure? Look, I don't think so. Look, they've got it. It's up to I'd like to bring them down. It's hard to bring things down once they're up. It's very hard, but I think they will. I think that energy is going to bring them down. I think better supply chain is going to bring them down. The supply chain, still broken. It's broken. You see it, right? You go to the docks and you see these containers. I own property in California in Palos Verdes. They're very nice. I pass the docks. I've been doing it for 20 years. I've never seen anything like it. For 17 years, I saw containers and, they come off, they be taken away to big areas, the area, where they have the big ships coming in, the big port. And I see it for years. And I was inspecting property and things because there are a lot in California. And I look down and I see containers that are 12, 13, 14 containers. You wouldn't believe it. They can hold it onto each other. It's crazy. No, the supply chain is broken. I think it's a very bad thing is what they're doing with the cars. I think they've also lost because of cars. They're doing a lot of reasons, but the car mandate is a disaster. The electric, the EV mandate. Does Elon agree with that? Oh, it's very interesting. I tell people that Elon is a friend of mine. He's a great guy. He gave me the best endorsement that anyone could ever have. And I'm here talking against the electric car because of that. But see, I'm not really talking against the electric car because the electric car I think is fantastic for some people, for a slice of the audience, but not for 100%. Elon, he's a big part of the business of Tesla, which is a great car, but Elon never once said, it's actually hard to believe. He never once even talked about this subject. He'll hear me speaking, we must stop. I will immediately terminate the mandate because I think he thinks I'm right. I'm a big fan of electric car, but it's not for everyone. Some people say his competitors benefit from the mandate and he got a head start. He makes a great product. But I do think, it's interesting because when he talks about how he came to be such a full-throated supporter of yours, it's a cultural issue that's at the core of that. I think that when people give you the taxonomy of the reasons why you won, you did. You mentioned the trans issue, but I feel like it's one of those that was also integral in a lot of ways. What do you see? So he described himself like basically a moderate Democrat, a centrist more or less. He was a Democrat. I think over time, something happened when I got shot. I got called by people who weren't fans because they became fans. And I don't view it as bravery, or I view it as whatever it was, but something happened and I think it sped it up. I think Elon was getting there and I think it sped up the process and him a lot and many of the people. Mark Zuckerberg. But a witch. It's now 5:00 and we've got about 12 meetings left. This is people outside telling him, he lost his train of thought. He goes, you have the power to do things legislatively. Yeah. So why is so much of your agenda executive driven? I don't know what you mean by that. Well, you said it's a lot of what you can do without. Oh, I like executive orders. Yeah? Well, I think Congress should have behaved differently when it came to the border. I ended up taking the money. I built, hundreds of miles of wall, but it took it from the military because I considered it an invasion. I passed the biggest tax cuts ever, bigger than Reagan tax cuts. I passed a lot of Congress, but also a lot of executive orders. I think Congress is going to be better this time for me. I didn't get along with Paul Ryan. I didn't like him. I didn't respect him. I didn't get along with Mitch McConnell. And I thought it was, some of the things that were terrible. The way he was handing out money for Green New Deal, it was just terrible. I do go along with, it's a new relationship essentially because we didn't really know each other very well. But I do get along with Senator Thune. I do get along with Mike Johnson. I think, Mike is doing a really good job. Both of them are doing a really good job. If I ever even have to do one little bit of trouble, I go do an executive order because I can get it done. And some of these things I did an executive order. I had them approved. And later on through Congress, in other words, I get it done and get it done. And look, the great thing about the executive order, you can do and get it done immediately. The bad thing or the good thing, depending upon where you're coming from, is you can undo it. Look, I can undo almost everything Biden did through executive order. And on day one, much of that will be undone. Do you support ending the filibuster? I want to leave the Supreme Court the way it is, most importantly. The filibuster is a mechanism that you're not going to totally overturn every single thing that was ever done. It makes it difficult for the Senate. It makes it very, very difficult to overturn things. Now, in one way, it's good. Another way, maybe you say it's bad. But, some of the things I have great respect for. Manchin and Sinema. For the fact they really held out. Look, she lost her career because of it. And you could say maybe he lost his career because of it. Because actually, he became hotter because of it. And it made the mistake of going for the Inflation Creation Act, which is my nickname, by the way, for the Inflation Reduction Act. He got none done because it was popular. But no, I think we do have to do what we have. Our Supreme Court was under siege, and perhaps it still is. But now they don't have. Now the other side just doesn't have the power to do. I've heard as many as 25 justices, and they were all psyched. They were going to do a number on our Supreme Court, and now it's not going to happen. Chung, let me just interject here, but we've got to make this the last question. So I have respect for the filibuster. So you want to keep it in place? Yes. I want to go back to the moment you talked about, Mr. President, how people changed when you were shot. I'm curious how you've changed. Now, I try not to think about it, but it was a big moment. It was a big moment. I had a big crowd. We had 55,000 people RSVP'd. We had 107,000 when the memorial was out a few weeks later. But a few months later, actually, when you think about late October, I think we had a very big moment. I think a lot of people changed in that moment. I think a lot of people became much more religious in that moment. Is that true of you? I think I have family members that became more of a believer than they would have been. A lot of people changed. That was a horrible day. It was a horrible moment in our country, but I think it changed a lot of minds. Thank you so much, Mr. President. Thank you very much. That was the train wreck. Holy, you guys, he's a fucking moron. Okay, you know what? I'm going to go take a break and get something to drink. And then I'm going to come back and then I'm just going to see if we can't read maybe the other 12 minutes. Cliff Cash. I don't know who that is, but I will check it out. Version 2.0. So guys, I'm going to go take a quick break, but I will come back after I get something to drink because holy shit, that was a lot. But I will be back, okay? See you guys in a few minutes.